No matter how big Elvis got, he's still the guy that grew up in a tar shack.
Elvis Presley might still be alive, and some people think he's living as Pastor Bob Joyce. Fans have missed Elvis for years since his sad death, but now some believe he faked his death to get away from the pressure of fame and now leads a small church in Arkansas. Imagine the same voice, the similar looks, even the way he moves. Everything seems to match up. The voice and how he acts have amazed many. Stay with us as we explore this story, one that could change how we think about the king of rock and roll. Elvis lives on through Pastor Bob Joyce's voice. Officially, the world believes Elvis's story ended on August 16, 1977. The shocking news spread quickly. He, only 42, had passed away from a heart attack linked to years of prescription medication use and declining health. Fans around the world were heartbroken, grieving the loss of the man who transformed music and defined a generation. News outlets painted a picture of his final days as sad and filled with illness, making his passing seem inevitable. But beneath the sorrowful headlines, whispers of a hidden truth linger, an untold story waiting to emerge. However, not everyone accepted this version of events. Right from the start, some fans noticed odd details that didn't seem to fit the story. These lingering questions kept the rumor alive. For instance, people pointed out strange facts about Elvis's death, like a possible error in his autopsy report, the quick burial, and even a misspelled name on his tombstone. Instead of Aaron, his middle name was spelled differently than how he himself usually wrote it. These little inconsistencies stirred curiosity among fans and added fuel to the mystery. In the weeks following his reported passing, people claimed to have seen Elvis in various places, giving rise to even more questions about whether he was truly gone. The odd details around his last hours only made these sightings more intriguing. This theory that Elvis may have faked his death didn't just spring from the hopes of fans, but was strengthened by the need to solve a story that seemed open-ended the more closely people looked at it. According to this theory, weighed down by the endless demands of fame, financial issues, and personal struggles, Elvis may have carefully planned his own escape. From here, we'll explore the life of Pastor Bob Joyce, a man who not only bears a striking resemblance to Elvis, but also shares some of his unique singing qualities. When Elvis disappeared, some fans believed he might have finally escaped the constant pressure of fame, stepping away from the never-ending spotlight and high expectations. To many, this idea brings a sense of comfort, a story where Elvis chose a quieter, more peaceful life for himself. As the years went by, fans continued to report sightings and share stories of encounters, building up a theory that he may have faked his own death to live a simpler life. This tale only grew stronger, becoming a legend that has kept people guessing for decades. One name that has recently become tied to this theory is Pastor Bob Joyce. A preacher in Benton, Arkansas, he leads his community with a simple yet heartfelt approach. His deep spirituality and moving sermons have made him well-loved among his congregation. He also has a passion for music, which comes through in his worship services, and his warm, charismatic personality has won over many hearts. But there's more to the story. What really draws attention is Pastor Bob's striking resemblance to Elvis. When people look at Pastor Bob, they can't help but notice how similar he looks to Elvis. Photos and videos of Pastor Bob have spread widely online, with fans pointing out how alike they appear. But it's not only his looks that have people talking. Perhaps the most convincing detail is his voice. When Pastor Bob sings hymns at his church, his voice has that rich, soulful tone that Elvis was known for. Many listeners feel as if they're transported back in time, as if Elvis himself were singing in front of them. Fans have shared clips of Pastor Bob singing, placing them alongside Elvis's songs, and the similarities are striking. When Pastor Bob sings, people can't help but notice a striking similarity to the voice of Elvis. This has sparked curiosity and conversation, with some wondering if Pastor Bob could actually be Elvis, expressing his musical gift in a different setting. Even though Pastor Bob has addressed these speculations, the idea continues to capture people's interest. Believers in this theory aren't solely focused on how Pastor Bob looks or even his stage presence. They are drawn in by his voice, which seems to carry the essence of Elvis's musical expression. Fans and audio experts alike have analyzed Pastor Bob's singing, finding remarkable similarities in tone, vocal range, and even small vocal quirks that bring Elvis to mind. Experts point out how Pastor Bob's way of phrasing and the way he expresses emotion in his songs resemble Elvis's style. It's as if Pastor Bob channels the warmth, strength, and heartfelt quality of Elvis's performances, reminding many of the singer they loved. These comparisons fuel the belief that Pastor Bob might be Elvis, choosing a quieter, more personal way to share his musical gift. The belief is supported by more than just personal impressions. Technical voice analyses and comparisons have strengthened the argument. Videos comparing Pastor Bob's church performances with Elvis's famous songs circulate widely online, sparking countless discussions. In these side-by-side videos, listeners notice the similar notes and emotions both voices hit, which has left many in awe and more convinced of the connection. Absolutely, there's something almost magical in how a voice or melody can transport us back to a particular moment in time. A familiar voice, especially one tied to a shared community or belief system, has a way of pulling at memories and emotions deeply stored within us. With Pastor Bob, people might feel they're reconnecting with comforting aspects of their past, or with emotions they thought they'd long since set aside. Even if it's coincidental, that resemblance creates a powerful bridge between memory and present experience, letting listeners relive and perhaps rediscover feelings they once knew. It's like a song or voice acts as an emotional time capsule, and Pastor Bob's singing has become a door to that past for so many. When fans saw Pastor Bob Joyce, they couldn't shake the feeling that Elvis might still be around. The striking resemblance of Pastor Bob Joyce. Many people struggle to pinpoint whether it's the way Pastor Bob Joyce sings or the rich emotion in his voice that stirs memories of Elvis Presley. Yet something about Pastor Bob keeps the notion alive that Elvis might still be around, simply living a different life. One look at Pastor Bob reveals a striking resemblance to Elvis, making it easy to see why this idea captures so many. With just a glance, it becomes almost impossible to ignore how much Pastor Bob resembles an older Elvis, even decades after he was believed to have passed away. Pastor Bob has that familiar jawline, those piercing blue eyes that seem to hold a story, and even the same distinct nose shape. Some fans have pointed out that the lines on Pastor Bob's face look like the ones Elvis might have if he had grown older, as though he has simply aged into Elvis. It's not just Pastor Bob's looks, though. His movements and gestures also bring Elvis to mind. The way Pastor Bob holds himself, moves his hands, and even his posture all seem to remind people of Elvis's charm and stage presence. This uncanny similarity has led fans to put together side-by-side comparisons of Pastor Bob and Elvis using photos and videos. These visuals have become popular online as people examine every little detail, from the way Pastor Bob smiles to how he holds the microphone while singing. When fans look at these comparisons, they consistently point out how Pastor Bob's mannerisms mirror Elvis's unforgettable style. Artists have even created pictures of what Elvis might look like if he had lived longer, and these images often bear a striking resemblance to Pastor Bob. This has only made people feel more convinced that maybe, just maybe, Elvis is still with us in some form, living as Pastor Bob. The idea that Pastor Bob might actually be Elvis, now choosing to live a humble and spiritual life, is hard for many to dismiss. Fans keep bringing it up, sharing experiences where they're sure they've seen Elvis and Pastor Bob. These aren't just random thoughts. They come from dedicated fans who know Elvis's voice, his mannerisms, and his famous charisma well. When they see Pastor Bob, many say something clicks. His eyes, his smile, and the way he performs with so much emotion feel unmistakably familiar, leading them to believe Pastor Bob could really be Elvis. Over the years, more people have reported similar experiences. They've either seen Pastor Bob in person during a sermon or watched him in videos online and felt a strong resemblance to Elvis. These stories often come from people who have followed Elvis closely and know his personality well. One fan, for example, shared that visiting Pastor Bob's church felt like a reunion with Elvis. Another group noted how Pastor Bob's magnetic presence and his unique vocal style reminded them so much of the king of rock and roll. These stories are everywhere, on fan websites, social media, and video channels, keeping the discussions going strong. Some fans share their experiences in viral videos, passionately describing how they felt when they saw Pastor Bob. For many, these encounters aren't just coincidences. They're deeply emotional experiences that confirm their belief that Elvis lives on through Pastor Bob. It's not just about what they saw, it's about the deep emotional impact, reconnecting them to a beloved star they thought was gone forever. The intensity with which fans share these memories often speaks volumes. Whether they're recalling the moment they heard Pastor Bob sing or discussing it with others in fan groups, there's a strong sense of belief and hope. These fans feel a connection that goes beyond looks. It's an almost spiritual certainty that the essence of Elvis is alive and touching hearts again through Pastor Bob's words and music. Imagine how moving it must be for fans who once loved Elvis to feel that connection again in someone new. This is why so many of them are convinced. It's not just the resemblance, but something more profound. In 1977, the year Elvis supposedly died, he was facing major physical and emotional challenges. The constant glare of fame had worn him down. Living every day in the public eye with almost no privacy had turned his glamorous life into something that felt more like a fancy prison. His fame felt overwhelming. He couldn't leave his home without fans and reporters crowding around, always wanting a performance. This non-stop demand, along with the pressure of keeping up his music career, was taking a serious toll on him. On top of this, Elvis had various health problems, including heart issues, and the side effects of long-term prescription and medication use. With all this pressure, faking his death might have seemed like a way out, a path to the peace and quiet he deeply wanted. Another reason that makes this theory believable is Elvis's well-known desire for a more genuine, meaningful life. People close to him often talked about his interest in spiritual teachings and his search for deeper, lasting truths beyond the shallow fame that surrounded him. By the time rumors of his fake death started spreading, Elvis was worn out from years of performing, touring, and constant media attention. The idea of pretending to pass away to live a quieter, more spiritual life fits well with who he really was behind his famous image. Although he was the king of rock and roll, Elvis often expressed a wish to step out of the spotlight. Could Elvis have chosen a peaceful life over fame? Pastor Bob's story makes people wonder. The king's return in a new life. The thought that he faked his death also fits with his supposed wish to lead a different kind of life, one focused on faith and community rather than fame and wealth. If he did leave his public life behind, he might have wanted to begin fresh, seeking a simpler, more meaningful life. Some think this could explain the life of him who leads a small church community and spends his days focused on spirituality and helping others. For those who believe this theory, it seems likely that he would choose such a life filled with purpose, community, and a chance to share his music in a more personal way. The similarities between his longing for a humble, spiritual life and his current path are striking and hard to ignore. The idea seemed unlikely, yet life often brings surprising turns. For him, maybe this was the change he quietly longed for. His usual path of success and routine had shifted, opening a new direction, one that might finally lead him to the deeper purpose he had unknowingly sought. He is famous worldwide, but imagine if he had decided to lead a quiet life as a pastor. In this scenario, he'd be guiding others, singing gospel songs, and finding peace in a life of simplicity. This view suggests a powerful transformation, a man who once had it all, choosing to give up fame and fortune to find real happiness in a more connected, meaningful life. Doctors who treated him also remind us of his well-known health problems, such as heart issues and struggles with addiction, which contributed to his early death. They say that the official story of his passing is not only believable, but supported by a lot of medical evidence, showing his health was getting worse over time. To many, the lasting popularity of this theory comes from fans who find it hard to say goodbye to a beloved star. Several people have also openly opposed the theory, offering evidence that suggests he couldn't be living as him. Facial analysis experts, for example, have compared photos of him, noting clear differences that indicate they're not the same person. Plus, people who know him say his life story is well documented, with no hidden chapters that would hint at a secret past as a famous rock star. Skeptics add that the supposed similarities in their voices don't necessarily mean anything extraordinary. People often see what they wish to believe, especially about their heroes. Admiration paints over flaws, transforming faults into virtues. Heroes become symbols rather than humans, crafted from selective memories that overlook imperfections. In this way, belief reshapes reality, offering comfort and inspiration through a vision of perfection. His singing talent might simply be a natural gift, similar to his style. He inspired many singers, and it's not unusual for performers to pick up on traits from their idols, especially in gospel music. Looking at both sides of this story helps us keep an open mind. So let's consider each perspective and see where it leads. For those drawn to the idea of him living on as him, there is plenty to consider. The resemblance is undeniably striking. The facial features, the voice filled with deep feeling, and even the similar mannerisms all hint at something more than coincidence. For many, it feels possible that he, after years in the intense spotlight, might have longed for a quieter, simpler existence. He might have wished to leave the pressures of fame behind and live a life filled with peace and purpose, perhaps finding solace in spirituality. To these believers, the theory lines up smoothly, each piece fitting as if it were part of a larger puzzle. However, those close to him, as well as experts on his life, present strong arguments against this theory. They point out details and personal knowledge of him that challenge the idea he could have simply disappeared and reappeared as someone new. They argue that this notion reflects how profoundly fans connected with him, how deeply his magnetic personality and unique style left an impact. In their view, the ongoing speculation says more about the enduring legacy he left behind than any hidden life he might have pursued. Believers and skeptics alike recognize the influence this theory has had on his memory. It brings a fresh and unique way of keeping his legacy alive, showing that fascination with his life and spirit remains as strong as ever, even decades after his passing. The similarities are intriguing, capturing attention and inviting curiosity, while the stories of a possible hidden life are heartfelt and appealing. It is a thought that draws people in, the idea that he may have chosen to live out his years in quiet reflection rather than in the public eye. Yet there are compelling reasons to doubt this possibility, reasons that are as strong as the arguments in favor. The choice to believe or not rests with each person as they weigh the evidence and decide what feels real to them. The theory may never be proven true or false, but it endures, allowing each individual to experience his memory in their own way, keeping the spirit of the king alive through imagination and possibility. Could Pastor Bob Joyce actually be Elvis Presley? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this.